With its first high-stakes primetime hearing, the January 6th committee wants to establish the truth of what happened on that day and to demonstrate that Donald Trump and his most fervent supporters did more than provoke and carry out an attack on the Capitol. They tried to undermine American democracy and came dangerously close to succeeding. As it kicks off a series of hearings tomorrow night, the January 6th committee says it will show the attack on the Capitol was not a spontaneous riot, but the culmination of an effort by Donald Trump and his closest allies to overturn a presidential election.
The committee has found evidence of concerted planning and premeditated activity. The idea that all of this was just a rowdy demonstration that spontaneously got a little bit out of control is absurd. You don't almost knock over the U.S. government by accident.
In its first primetime hearing, the Select Committee on January 6th will hear from Caroline Edwards, a Capitol police officer seen here trying to hold the line as the mob approached the Capitol. She was seriously injured as the mob pushed through the barricades, suffering a concussion and traumatic brain injury. Since then, she's had dizzy spells so bad she can sometimes barely walk, and for months had trouble speaking. "You have stolen moments away from me that I can't get back," Edwards wrote in a court letter last year. The committee is also hearing from a documentary filmmaker named Nick Quested. He was embedded with the Proud Boys before and during the January 6th attack. A rioter caught on tape trying to break one of his cameras outside the Capitol. And the night before, Quested captured this video.
And Stuart, pleasure's all mine, brother.
Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers meeting in a parking garage on Capitol Hill. The committee has access to thousands of hours of videotape that has never been seen before, surveillance video and video from that documentary filmmaker Nick Quested, a video that they plan to show for the very first time tomorrow night.
I wonder how many Americans are going to watch. I do know Fox News is not airing it, so you could forget the little, 2 million primary voters in Texas. They won't see this. They won't see this. Neither will the people who are voting for Chuck Grassley in Iowa. Chuck Grassley. He will be 95 years old at the end of this next term. 95 years old. All he has to do is win the Iowa primary, which he did. And he's now a senator till he's 95 years old. And you expect good government to come from the United States Senate. That is a joke. The unfortunate part of that joke is it's on all of us. It's on all of us. It is a joke with a punchline that comes and bites you in the ass every single time you look around and say, when is something going to be done about fill in the blank? Never. Never, because we have minority rule in this country. And entire propaganda networks devoted to giving propaganda to those minuscule numbers of people. I keep telling you, people always say, well, Fox News is number one. They're number one. Damn it. 3 million people makes them number one in the cable news business. 3 million people watching that channel makes them number one in the cable news business. Now, that's a pittance of available eyeballs in this here country. Like I like to use I Love Lucy as an example, because back in the day, it was before my time. I only know I Love Lucy on the reruns, but I love it, obviously. But I Love Lucy, I think it was on Monday nights in the 50s. It had 60 million viewers per episode. 60 million viewers per episode. 3 million people watching Tucker Carlson makes Tucker Carlson number one in this country these days. We don't have shared experiences anymore. We don't have shared news anymore. We don't have shared facts anymore. We don't have Walter Cronkite. We don't have 3 networks anymore. We don't have standards and practices anymore. We don't have ombudsmen checking facts. We actually brand things news, knowing full well that it's full of lies. And they do it to appeal to a tiny little sliver of Americans who get radicalized and then show up to vote in primaries. That is the name of the entire GOP game. That is how it's played. It is how it works. And you're about to see that. You're about to see that. Tomorrow, when they start showing you what happened on January 6th, you're going to see that although there were thousands of people at this rally, it was a small minority of Americans who bought into the big lie. It was a tiny little sliver of Americans who believed that Donald Trump really won. And they were so radicalized with the big lie that they were willing to do harm to not just people, not just places, not just things, but they were willing to kill democracy. They were willing to trash our entire government. They were willing to take out Nancy Pelosi. They were willing to take out Mike Pence. They were willing to obliterate anything that stood in between them and their demagogue, between them and their dear leader, between them and this perceived strongman that was going to somehow save them from what I have no idea. I have no idea. Being replaced. Honestly, it's so dangerous and it's so observable and it's so knowable that there's no excuse for people not showing up in primary season. There's no excuse for people not showing up. I just told you, listen, a liberal San Francisco decided that they didn't want this district attorney because this district attorney refused to prosecute crime. And you can't have a district attorney that won't prosecute crime. You can't. And he's a strange guy anyway. I don't even know how this actually happened. Do you know anything about this district attorney in San Francisco, America? Do you have any idea? I bet you don't. His name... Chasa Boudwin. Okay, so no one ever heard of him, but here's his backstory. Because when you don't know who somebody is, look them up and go with, the best information you can get. So according to his bio, he actually was born to two parents named Kathy Boudwin and David Gilbert. They were Weather Underground members. They were left-wing terrorists, okay? They were people that were willing to set bombs and blow crap up, okay? And when he was 14 months old, both his parents, his mother and his father, when he was 14 months old, they were arrested and they were convicted of murder as the getaway drivers in the Brinks robbery of 1981 in Rockland County, New York. His mother was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison, and his father got 75 years to life for the felony murders of two police officers and a security guard. He was then adopted by two other Weather Underground members. He was adopted by Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, who, like his parents, had been members of the Weather Underground. He says he did not learn to read until he was 9 years old. That's his story. But he went all the way through law school and became a lawyer and clerked for some reputable, justices on the Ninth Circuit Courts of Appeal and other, courts. And then he worked his way up to be a district attorney in San Francisco and refused to prosecute any crime. And the people in San Francisco said, okay, we get it. We've had enough. Bye-bye. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.